English 1102, pain. Hopefully that sounds familiar. If it doesn't, you should leave. We had a couple people leave a couple minutes ago. I assume for that reason, not like they heard me say anything and they couldn't take it. I don't know. What I like to do on the first day, I'm going to walk you through a little bit of course then. Apparently, there's a technical wizard on the way who's going to fix the TV. So they might come in at some point. If so, they'll do their thing. I assume it'll be a simple fix. As of right now, this is basically useless. But we'll figure that out in a minute. All I want to do really on the first day, we're going to introduce ourselves to each other because that's kind of how it works. Come in. Oh, does it lock? That's buckets. All right. Yeah, slow down. You couldn't get in, I guess? All right, let's leave it open then. At least we're secure. Or whatever. Where was I? Oh, okay. We're going to introduce ourselves to each other, typical first day stuff. We're going to kind of blitz through the syllabus a little bit. We have to talk about it. I don't like it. You don't like it. That's just how it goes. But what I want to do today is talk about a poem. And I know that's the least exciting sentence you've heard in a minute. It's going to be all right. It's a short poem. I happen to think it's a good poem. But we'll see how you feel about that. All right. So introductions. All I want from you guys, and I will model it for you, okay? Your name, where you're from, what you got going on in school. That's kind of open-ended. That can be like, I'm and I'm majoring in blah, or some people just tell us kind of what they're going to school to be, right? I had a guy one time tell me he was working to be an NFL head coach, which is very specific. And after about 2 weeks, I didn't see him again, so I assume he's on his way. I know. It's probably not. But hey, I don't know. He could be. I don't know. Anyway, so name, where are you from, what you got going on at school, and then an interesting fact you do not mind us knowing. And I really stress that last part. I have another quick story. This is years ago. It's at a different place, so you do not know this person, so it's safe to tell you that before I had that addendum about something you don't mind us knowing, a young woman shared with us that when she got nervous, she would eat baking soda to like calm down. I know, and a lot of people reacted like that, and she didn't take that well, which is perfectly, all that's fine, but you cannot tell a room of people that and not expect a reaction. That's normal. So all I'm saying, whatever your fact is right now, if you got one, take a second step and go, oh, but do I want people to know that? If not, don't tell us. Make something up. Lie. That's fine. We don't know you. All right, so name, where you're from, what you got going on in school, interesting fact that you do not mind us knowing, please. All right, as I mentioned several times, Tim Payne. I understand that's going to annoy me. I get easily distracted. I could basically touch her right now. Yeah. Okay. I understand you're probably not cool using my first name, even though 99% of my life that's what people have done. I should point out, if it's not obvious, pretty much any iteration of like Mr. Payne makes me sound like a really lame supervillain. That's cool, right? That's a bridge we can cross together if we need to. Whatever you're comfortable with is fine with me, as long as it's not like insulting. So like bitch. I don't want you calling me bitch. But anything short of that, I'm usually pretty cool with. I'm from Douglasville, which is pretty close to here. Some of you may know it. There's a mall. When I was younger, like closer to your age, we were actually sort of heralded as the meth capital of the South. So I was told in a previous class that someone might be coming for that title, but anyway, so we're kind of a big deal. We got mall and meth. School. I got my bachelor's here in English. I got my master's here in literature, and then I went to the University of Alabama, where I studied poetry for about 3 years and taught some, and then my wife had our first son, and we had to get jobs. Because that's how life works. As soon as you have a kid, you're like, oh, we're not making any money, are we? No, we're not. Interesting fact, I kind of alluded to this. I'm tired and older than you. I'm probably technically what most of you would consider to be old, actually. I'm not going to tell you how old I am. I've been told I'm older than I look, which I guess is good. But I feel it. Like on days like this. I told you I'm a calf, definitely feeling it. Anyway, So my interesting fact is just that I have 2 boys, and I think they're great. They're 5 and 7. Well, one of them's about to be 7. I brought up pictures. They're very cute. They're going to be kind of hard to see, I think. This is Sam. He's 5. He enjoys popsicles. And then that's Jack. He's going to be 7 soon. That's his mom. She's pretty cool. That's them. So that's my interesting fact. Like I said, I'm not terribly interesting, but I kind of think that's your job. Like as a parent, you can live a crazy life. You can be all kinds of interesting. As soon as you have a kid or two, it's like your responsibility to them to get way less interesting, right? I'm not going to tell you this story. Maybe I will someday this semester. I had very interesting parents in all the kinds of ways that people are supposed to call services about. But they were really interesting. And yeah. So anyway, I don't know what of that exchange you guys might have caught. Basically, what he just told me is they fixed it, but not really. And if it messes up again, there's maybe something we can do and maybe not. So, awesome. Anyway, that's pretty bright. I'm still gonna. Oh, that hurt. That really hurt. All right. You guys see it okay? I can make it bigger. All right. Syllabus. Good times. A description of the course. I'm going to paraphrase a lot. I will almost never read at you. Frankly, I feel like you can read. And if you can't, man, you're doing well to get this far. English 1102. There's a couple ways to talk about it. First of all, it is with the idea that you've either had or somehow tested out of 1101, right? You were capable enough. You got through that storm, whatever it looks like for you, and now you're in 1102. 1101 is an introduction to college level writing. So 1102 is a continuation of that, right? So there's certain standards, there's certain expectations. That's my way of saying first couple weeks, we might have to cross some bridges together in that regard. That's perfectly normal. It is. You may have a certain opinion of me during those first few weeks if you're not having the best time, and that's fine too, but I'm just stressing for you here, it's normal. It happens. Doesn't happen to everybody, but it happens. So it's all good, okay? The worst thing you can do is get super discouraged in those first couple weeks and just dip out, either physically, mentally, or both, okay? That's when it really goes downhill. But if you stick it out a little bit, it tends to get better. You kind of, I can't really speak for everyone. It just tends to go better for people. Once you figure out what I want from you, and perhaps where I figure out what you need from me, okay? The other way to talk about 1102, just as a class, there's a research bent to it. So basically, the way academia works, right, is that a smart person has an idea, and they go test it out, and maybe they write about it, and other smart people investigate that idea, and they have arguments about it. That's what research is. We're not going to research from the jump, by the way, so don't misunderstand me. But at some point in the semester, I'll ask you to do a bit of research. We're going to talk about different kinds of texts, and you're going to engage with other people's ideas. Hopefully, you will have ideas of your own, okay? You need those also. But you'll test your ideas against other people's. You might agree, disagree, modify, what have you. But that's kind of how, that's the really, really short gist of how research academically is meant to work. We're going to dive into that in this semester. Oh, I really should just stay over here. Contact information. It's me. I don't really know what to say. I don't know if that phone number still works. I also think it's 2022 though, and you shouldn't be calling anyone, mostly. But test it out, I don't know. My email address is current, tpayne@wesco.edu. That's normally pretty memorable for people, because if you know who T-Pain is, I'm not him. So it's really easy to hang on to that piece of information. I'll tell you this, that's the best way to get in touch with me. People want to hit me up on CourseDen. I don't know why. They invented that when I was a student here. That's when it was a technological marvel. That was quite some time ago. It's shitty. This is Gmail. It comes to my phone. One of you hit me up before class, I hit you up almost immediately. Send something to my phone. I'll get right back to you, okay? I have virtual office hours, real office hours. My office is in Pafford. Does anybody not know where Pafford is? Do you know where the TLC is? You guys know where that is? TLC? Okay. If you're coming from the bookstore and you walk into the TLC, right? And then you go all the way out the other side of the TLC. If you look left, that's Pafford. Okay? Does that make sense? All right. 304, oh, it dimmed, fuck my life. Anyway, I'm on 304. I guess follow along in your seats if you like. 304 means I'm on the 3rd floor. J means I'm in a cubicle, which is not necessarily glamorous, but I do have a window, so that's pretty cool. I'm in the Writing Center. My hours are listed here. We're going to talk about what the Writing Center is later. All right, required texts. The formatting is weird on that. 2, required texts. I provide our texts for the first unit, so you got some time to get these materials, but you should get them. First one, Slaughterhouse-Five. It is a very, very, very famous novel. I know that doesn't mean a lot to most of you because no one reads. Trust me on that. This book's kind of a big deal. It came out in the 60s. It's about World War II and a little bit Vietnam. It's a good book. It's pretty crazy. The other text you're going to have to get a hold of some kind of way is the original Die Hard. Now, this is a DVD. What's funny? Yeah, it's great. It's a great movie.
I've seen it 100 times.
Do what?
I've seen it 100 times.
Okay, cool. Me too. It's awesome. Anyway, the thing about Die Hard, there's like 5 or 6 of them now, and they're all called Die Hard. You want the first one. It's the one without a subtitle. I shit you not, Die Hard 2 is called Die Harder. I know, the 80s. That was weird. So you just want Die Hard. Also, the thing about movies, you know, I have a DVD. This is my backup. If things go really wrong, I have this in my bag when we're doing it, and I can usually use it. But I don't see anything in this room actually, so this is trash this semester. But you guys will watch it digitally, right? I haven't checked in the past couple weeks. I normally do. I forgot. It was on Hulu. It's usually on some kind of service. You can also rent it on Amazon, something like that. Like, there's all kinds of ways to get a hold of the movie when we get there, okay? And I'll remind you, but at some point in the semester, you just want to figure out what that way is going to be for you, right? All right. There's grades. That's how grades have been forever. Major assignments. Okay. We have 3 papers in this class, and they're worth a good bit. Weights wise, like percentage wise. The thing I'll say about that, we're going to work on them for a pretty long time, each one. Now there's a negative way to take that. The good way to spin that is you're going to have a lot of time to make your paper the best it can be, whatever that is for you. Okay? So paper 1 is due September 2nd. I don't even know what today is. Was it the 11th? So a little less than a month for 3 pages. I think we can all do that. I think if you work most of the time, and that's a big if sometimes, you can make 3 pages happen and they cannot be dog shit. I really do. I believe that. Anyway, it goes like that for the semester. The other 2 items we have on here, homework. Does anybody not know what homework means? That's a real question I have. Because every semester I get emails about it. Like you're surprised. Okay. I just want us all to remember we had this moment where all of us together were like, yeah, I know what homework is. Okay. It's throughout the semester. It's 15% of your grade. It's not nothing. I'll say it like this. I got a couple of thoughts on homework. I'm going to hobble out here real quick. It's just when I start. You know what I'm saying? If I'm walking, but if I move, if something. I will never assign you busy work. Ever. Everything I ask of you in some way, shape, or form can, and in many cases will be used in your papers. It's stuff like write a thesis statement, write a body paragraph, try an introduction. I'm just having you build your paper along the way. Should you probably edit those things as we go on? Yeah. But either way, if you do your homework as we go, you will have all these parts of your paper well before it's due. That is such a better place to be in. I understand the allure of doing it the night before it's due. I get it. Because you can do a bunch of cool shit before that. I understand. But the night before is awful. Can we just agree on that? It sucks. So don't do that. Don't do that to yourself. The other way I'll talk about homework, it's 15%. Every semester, I get students that have a C average on their papers, and you won't be happy with me if that's you, but it happens. But they do all their homework. I don't remember, are there any math majors in the room? 15%, you got a C average. What are you looking at in the class? Like a high B, maybe sniffing an A? That's pretty fucking cool, right? Yeah. Flip side is also true. I got, every semester, a couple people do pretty well on the papers. They do fuck all for homework. Just do your homework. Just do it. It helps. In all the ways you should care about, it helps. Just do it. The other item on here, final project, I know that scares the bejesus out of some of you. It's not a big deal. We'll talk about it later. I promise you it's not a big deal. I absolutely promise you. When you learn what it is, you'll go, oh, I don't care at all. And that will be fine. Okay. Schedule. This is the most important part of the syllabus. This is what we do all the time. Today, before class, I wanted you to read the syllabus. That's a little joke for me. I knew you weren't going to do that, but still, it's on there. In class, first day, we did it. Syllabus, we're doing it. How do we read poetry? We're going to do that here in a second. That's how the syllabus works. So for next time, there's a poem on Courstin, which I'm going to show you, okay, called Old Men Playing Basketball. I want you to read that. A note on that. It will take you, no lie, 2 minutes, maybe. 2 literal minutes to read that poem. Most of you will do it. I was going to say before class. You'll do it sitting here before class. I will ask you to do it a little earlier than that and maybe read it more than once because it will only take 2 minutes. Read it once, see if you have any thoughts whatsoever about it, and then read it again just to see. Be crazy, right? The other thing I'd like you to do before class, next time, look at the prompt for paper 1. We're going to talk about it, right? In class next time, we will introduce that paper. We'll talk about MLA very briefly. And then the rest of that time, we're going to talk about that poem that hopefully you have read by then. Okay? That's how the semester goes. Any questions at this stage? Okay. The only other thing I'll say, because I want to be done with this, we have, I mentioned the Writing Center. They're there to help with your writing. It's kind of in the name. It's super useful in a class like this. There's a lot of people like me in there, like she's in there, for instance. She's an English teacher as well. I'd have you wave, but I don't want to mess with her. That's not fair. But it's any writing at all. It's not just English. Sociology, history, poli-sci, all these classes where you have writing. You can take it in there. You can get another set of eyes on it. Most of the people in there are really fucking good at writing. So it's helpful. I can also look at your stuff, but sometimes you don't want to talk to me for any kind of good reason, okay? So the Writing Center is there too. The numbers on the syllabus, I think, as is their email address, because you have to make an appointment. But you can also just Google these things. I hope I'm not, like, shocking anybody with that idea. Okay, let's talk about poetry. While we have a brief discussion, I guess I should walk you through Courstin first. Does anybody not know what Courstin is? Okay. I'm going to explain everything to you like you're me, which is to say you're in your late 30s. Google UWG Courstin. Courstin is one word, okay? And that will bring you to the main page where you log in with your MyUWG credentials. You know what those are, yes? Okay. You log in with that, it'll bring you to Courstin. You'll have all of your classes listed, right? This is everything I'm teaching. That's us. I click on that. That brings us to our main page. We got a calendar over here, which is kind of helpful. I would still recommend the syllabus to be perfect. The syllabus is way more detailed than the calendar. But anyway, there's syllabus. Here's content, which is all of our stuff. All of our stuff is in content. So for next time, Unit 1, that's what we're on because it's first. I got our prompt up here. That's what I want you to look at. I record all of our classes, which is what I'm doing there. I'm going to post those here. In the event that you have to miss for any kind of a reason, you can watch class later. We'll see if you do. Below that, we have everything we're doing in this unit. Autumn Begins in Martins Ferry, Ohio. That's the poem we're going to look at here in a second. After that, you got homework due on the 18th, the 23rd, you get it. It's all listed chronologically, okay? The only other website we're going to use, Turnitin.com. I'm going to send you information on that hopefully next week, but that's a different thing. That's for rough drafts and final drafts, so you don't have to worry about that for a while, okay? Most of what we do is going to be on CourseDen, so we're going to figure this out first. The other thing I want to show you real quick, this is Unit 1. We need texts for Unit 1. That's in Fairchild, which actually I'm going to move down there. All right. Old men playing basketball. That's the poem for next time. I typed these up, so you don't have to buy the book. Okay? For the class after that, we read Little Boy. After that, it's Body and Soul. Again, you get it. But you don't have to buy a book for the first unit. It's all here. Make sense? Cool. All right. What I want you to do, we're going to have a brief conversation about poems. While we do that, if you could, log into CourseDen if you're not already. Do your best to pull up this poem because I want it in front of you when we talk about it. Okay? All right. If we could for just a couple minutes while you're doing that. If I say, I don't even know how to phrase this actually. What is poetry to you guys? Like, what's your understanding of it, relationship with it? What do you think when you think about poetry? Is it nothing? Do any of you have any experience with it? Got one hand at half mast? Okay. Did you have some experience with it like in high school? Is that mostly? Yeah? Can you name any poets? Can't name any? Oh, there's some pretty low-hanging fruit. You can't name one. One? Go for it. Okay, she's pretty famous. Yeah? Anybody else? Shakespeare? Whitman? Poe? You heard of any of these guys? If you're dead and white, you're probably a poet, right? Okay. The point is you have some experience with poetry, but usually it's not great. When you guys were maybe asked to read poems, say in high school, do you remember the kinds of things you'd have to do with that poetry? The questions you'd be asked, or what you're supposed to do, what you're supposed to think?
You have to explain what it's saying.
Yeah, you have to explicate, which we're going to do at some point. That's a good habit to be in. Did you have your hand up there? Go. And that's helpful too. The only downside to that, and there is a downside, a lot of times you guys will come into this class thinking that that's enough, right? That's a start to maybe trying to piece a thing out, think about what else might be going on. What you can't do, like in a paper, and some of you will do this, is just, this is a simile. And I'm like, okay, so what, right? But that's a place to start. Very good. What is poetry to you guys? You have some experience with it. Maybe not a lot. But when you think of poems, what are they? What do they do? How do they operate? Yeah, Edgar Allan Poe. Drank himself to death. Married his cousin. The Raven. Good poem. Good poem. Annabelle Lee is really good too. You should check it out. It's short.
You said you asked what is poetry?
Yeah.
I think it's the way people express themselves.
It is. It is. And it's what? I mean, stop me if I'm wrong, right? But it's like, it's deep emotion, right? It's like feeling something so strongly and trying to put it into words. But that's a hard thing to do. I mean, you may have run into this at some point in your lives, right? Like it's hard to get exactly what you feel here out here. Words aren't great for that, actually, right? I think that's pretty accurate for most poetry, for sure, for sure. The thing about that is, and that's going to get us to this poem. Hopefully you've had enough time to pull it up. We're all individuals. That's true. And we all have individual feelings, which kind of gets at what you're saying, right? But we're also connected to each other, right? We're from the same kinds of towns, or the same country at the very least, or the same world. We're all human beings, if you want to get really broad. And so we share perspectives with each other based upon things like time and place, right? This poem was written, published in 1959 by a guy named James Wright. He's very dead. Okay. Really awesome poet, though, personally. This is about a place called Martins Ferry, Ohio. I assume you've not heard of that place. I had never heard of it before I read this poem a long, long time ago. All I want you thinking about, because we're going to talk about it for a little bit, when we read this poem, this is about him, right? Because unavoidably, anything you write is about you. It's from you. But I think you're going to pretty quickly understand it's really not about him. It's about something bigger than that. What exactly are we trying to... He's trying to have us see something. It's important to the speaker in this poem. That's what we call the guy saying the poem. It's important to the speaker that we see something. Okay? We'll see what that is. I'm going to hobble over here. Autumn begins in Martins Ferry, Ohio. In the Shreve High football stadium, I think of Polacks nursing long beers in Tiltonsville, and gray faces of Negroes in the blast furnace at Benwood, and the ruptured night watchmen of Wheeling Steel, dreaming of heroes. All the proud fathers are ashamed to go home. Their women cluck like starved pullets, dying for love. Therefore, their sons grow suicidally beautiful at the beginning of October, and gallop terribly against each other's bodies. That's the whole poem. That's the whole poem. Very short, right? There's a couple steps we can take to try to dig into this thing. And the first step is, I think, what you were talking about a moment ago. Just what is going on? Like, what is literally happening? Okay? Where do we start the poem?
Autumn.
In autumn. Yeah, we learn at the title the sort of time of year. Good. Where are we physically?
Ohio.
More specifically.
March.
Super specific. Yeah, okay. More specific than that.
You have football stadium.
In the Shreve High football stadium. So we're in a high school football stadium. Some of you may be familiar with that kind of place. Okay? We pretty quickly veer, though. We don't seem to stay there. Where do we go after that? We're in Tiltonsville. What's going on in Tiltonsville? Who?
Icelandic people.
Polish folks. Polak, by the way, is a slur for Polish people. Yeah. They're nursing long beards. You may not be familiar with the phrase. What do you think a long beard is?
Like tall wood.
Yeah, a big one. Does anyone know what it means to nurse a beer?
Drink it.
Slowly.
You sip on it. Take a while. There can be different reasons for that. But this is a very specific way for these people to be drinking, right? Okay. What's going on in the next line? We're in Benwood all of a sudden. What's going on here? Again, you may not be familiar with all the language, but we can piece it out. What's going on?
They're at work
What kind of work?
in a furnace, like in a very hot,
Why does it sound hot to you?
it's a blast.
Blast furnace. I don't know what that is without looking it up, right? But I can make some pretty strong guesses. Blast furnace sounds pretty damn hot. I bet it's rough work, okay? Some African American gentlemen, again, admittedly, 1959, we're kind of on the edge of that being a slur or not being a slur, just to give you a little bit of history here. But it seems intentional since we're, right? But anyway, that guy's working in the blast furnace. His face is gray for some reason, right? Why do you think that is?
Ash.
Could be ash. Could be ash. Could also be, if you picture a guy, you've seen movies, right? If you picture a guy, there's like a bunch of flame or whatever right here. It's weird sometimes. The contrast almost makes everything else look darker against it, right? So he's like weirdly hidden doing this work. Next line. Ruptured night watchman of Wheeling Steel. That one can be tough for some people. What do you guys think that is? piece it out. Again, where are we, first of all?
Wheeling steel.
Wheeling Steel. What on earth is that? I don't think that's a town.
Train, maybe? Like,
Fair guess, but I would.
The factory.
A factory. I think so. What kind of factory?
Steel factory.
Talking about steel mill. How do you know?
Wheeling
Wheeling Steel. That helps. But how do you know it's a factory and not a train?
Because it's a product now.
I mean, maybe trains have names. I don't
There's a
know.
watchman, like a night watchman, so like somebody keeping an eye on the.
Yeah. Although here again, I mean, just to play devil's advocate, I could see trains maybe having security. It's this. This puts us in a mindset of that kind of a place. And then, yeah, we're talking about steel workers, guys that work those kind of jobs, right? This is a night watchman at the place, and he's ruptured, which is a wild thing to me. What are these people doing apparently? No. Hopefully you're following along. What are these people doing? Well, yeah, but the next one.
Dreaming of Hero.
Dreaming of heroes. That feels important. Next line. All the proud fathers are ashamed to go home. What on earth? That's kind of just what it says, right? Proud dads don't want to go home. We're going to talk about that line here in a minute. Cool. Their women cluck like starved pullets dying for love. What the hell? What's going on in this line? Maybe. But I mean, literally, what's happening in this line? First of all, is there any language you maybe need to look up real quick in this line? I'm going to bet most of you. It's a chicken. What kind of chicken?
Female.
It's a young hen. Their women cluck like young hens, dying for love. That's interesting. Therefore, their sons grow suicidally beautiful at the beginning of October and gallop terribly against each other's bodies. This is a very, very, very famous stanza. A stanza, by the way, is basically just paragraphs of poems, right? So there's 3 stanzas in this poem. Any idea what's going on in that last one? We know the time of year, and it seems to tie into the title, right? The beginning of October, okay? Their sons grow suicidally beautiful and gallop terribly against each other's bodies. Any idea what their sons might be doing? Kind of.
Playing football?
Why do you say that?
Football field.
Exactly. This poem is about football in Middle America, in the Rust Belt. But it doesn't sound that way, right? Because he's a poet. So they grow suicidally beautiful. They gallop terribly against each other's bodies. What aspect of the game are we highlighting here?
Tackling.
The violence. Yeah. Vince Lombardi famously said, football is not a contact sport, it's a collision sport. I think that's what we're talking about here. By the way, this is in 1959. There was no, like, you can't tackle above the net, right? There's none of that. It was just murder ball, basically. Okay. So that's literally what's happening in the poem. We talk a lot about dudes working different places and drinking a little bit. We get to something about their home lives, it seems like, right? And then we get to their kids playing football. Well, their sons, right? Let's start back at the top. To the best of your ability, does anything stand out to you as potentially important or interesting? And I'm trying real hard to get out of people's way. If I hustle too fast, I'm going to hurt myself. Does anything stand out to you from that first stanza that might be worth investigating further? Yeah, go ahead.
I think the hero line is interesting.
That seems interesting, right? And then I'll come to you in just a second, so you don't have to. I touched on this a moment ago, but let's stay here now. Who's dreaming of heroes here? The workers. That's one interpretation, right? In the Street Fight football stadium, all these people dreaming of heroes. Because, by the way, this whole stanza is one sentence. Yeah. So then the question we have to carry through the rest of the poem is, well then who are they dreaming of? Who are the heroes for these people? That's one possibility. Let's play that out real quick actually, and then we'll come back around to it. Who are they dreaming of, do you think? These guys. Let's learn more about them real quick. All the proud fathers, and I haven't forgotten about that. All the proud fathers are ashamed to go home. Because that's the next line, and it's also weird. What's weird about that line? All the proud fathers are ashamed to go home.
Why would they be, like, why are they ashamed to go home?
It says they're proud, right? That's strange. To be proud and also ashamed? That doesn't make sense, right? What the hell's that about?
They mad because they son's not good. Or they team lost.
I'm gonna hit you with a hard maybe. One idea, and look, the whole point to the discussion we're having, there's all kinds of things that you guys are prone to do, and this is all of you, because I've taught this a lot. One of the things you're gonna have to do when you read these poems is try to check yourself occasionally. And one of the easiest checks in the world is, whatever you thought about the poem is, immediately go back to the poem and say, is there anything that supports that? Okay? So in this case, and I get this one a lot, like their son's lost. Do we see anything in here about a scoreboard? No. Not even anything about a specific game, right? There's nothing. So probably not that. Let's start with the first half of the line. Proud fathers. Why might they be proud? What menu do we have to choose from? What could they be proud of?
Maybe.
There's no scoreboard.
Maybe their sons on the team, like they're proud that they're on the team.
That seems like part. I mean, first of all, it's not proud dudes or proud guys. It's proud fathers. Language matters. So yeah, that would suggest they're proud of their sons for being on the team. Okay. Then what are they? In the same way, we say proud fathers. The language, the specific word matters. What are they ashamed to do?
Go home.
So that would suggest what? It's something at home that shames them. What do you think they're ashamed of at home? What did she do?
Obviously, it sounds like she's lonely.
It sounds like she's lonely. Let's slow down. I don't think anyone's ever quite hit me with that quickly. What kind of guys are these? What do they do?
They're hard working.
They work hard. Blue collar job. We have that phrase. Oh, your hand. I'm sorry, man.
I was saying maybe it's like they don't get, like they have a job, they just don't bring enough money, so they're proud to have a job, they just don't have enough.
Why do we think that? Let's talk about who these guys are. The kind of job they have comes with some associations, right? Again, you may not have this kind of job or know a lot about it, but we all have expectations of them, right? Hard work. Sounds awful. I think another part of that expectation is it doesn't pay like it should, right? And that would lead to what kind of home life? A shitty house. And they're not there a lot, right? I cut somebody off, I'm sorry.
They're like, there's a lot to do at home, so like they're proud that their job is done at work, but going home, there's more work to do that they just can't fulfill both lives.
I'm with you with can't fulfill. I would question what they're meant to fulfill. So let's pause there for a second. Remember, this is a poem in 1959. How do we picture these guys? These hardworking guys, not making enough, but hardworking. What kind of guys are they? Yeah.
Miserable.
Do they help with the laundry?
No.
Fuck no. Again, different time, different place, different set of expectations. But they're still ashamed. The point I'm making here is at no point are they like, I'm not helping out enough. No. That's not. What are they ashamed of? They've not done something.
They're paying attention to their woman at home.
She seems concerned with that.
Yeah.
And that could be part of it. But I think it's a little broader than that. What are they ashamed of? What are they supposed to be doing? Because that's what shame is. You're not doing what you're supposed to, right?
Like their masculinity issue, like it was a bring home the bacon.
Good. They're the provider. It tells you right here that their women are stuck at home, right? That's what hens do. They roost. So they're handling the home life, but the house sucks. They don't make enough money. They're not providing like they're supposed to, like they're expected to. So they're proud fathers, but they're ashamed to go home because home is everywhere that they haven't sort of measured up. Good. Who are their heroes then? I think we've well established it's not their women. Maybe. We don't really have any other options, do we? Yes, ma'am. Oh. Do we talk about that in the poem anywhere? No. And that's okay. Look, especially today, throw them at me. That's fine. But one of the most immediate checks you got to learn to you got to train yourself to have is have that and go, is that in the poem anywhere? That one's not. Okay? All right. I think it's got to be their sons. Fuck me. There's nothing else in the poem, right? Why are their sons heroes, do you think? There's a really easy answer to this question.
If they're going and doing something that could maybe benefit them.
I'm gonna let you finish that thought, but I don't feel good about it. Benefit them how?
Like, well, I don't know if they got scholarships or anything like that, but like,
Slow down.
it doesn't say that.
Is there a recruiter in the stands in this poem? Is there? No. So it's much simpler, first of all. What are they proud of them for? Why are they heroes? Because they're playing football. That's it. The stakes are lower in this poem. Dad has a real hard job. He comes home. It's not great. Their wives don't seem super happy about it. But the sons play football, and that's enough to make them heroes. For some reason. And we're going to try to figure out that reason, maybe. But that's basically what's happening here. We skipped over it because I was trying to answer that bigger question. What's the deal with the women being hens? Any ideas on that? That's a weird way to talk about women, right?
They stay at home and they're watching over the
Yeah.
house, which is like the roost.
Yeah. And what do hens do?
Like eggs.
They reproduce. And they watch the house. So. Dad's life doesn't seem great. Mom's life doesn't seem great either. Here. I just wanted to say that real quick. All right. You had your hand up a long time ago, and I'm sorry. Do you remember?
Kind of. We kind of already went over it.
Go for it anyway.
Okay. I was just gonna say, like, there are a lot of keywords that I think the poet puts in there to let us know, like, you know, that their work is horrible and grueling.
Oh, okay.
And also, he specifies race. And
Yeah.
so Polish and people of color are gonna
Yeah.
make even less money because
Yeah.
if we're talking about 1959
Yeah.
Ohio,
Yeah.
the being a blue collar worker in the steel mill or in a furnace
Yeah.
area is already going to pay horribly.
Yeah.
But he specifically mentions that they're also minorities.
And it's so it's not just blue collar in that stereotypical way where they're not being paid enough, but it's that they could be potentially paid less. Yeah, and it's weird too. We do not have a ton of time to go down this other road that's absolutely in the poem, but there's for sure something to using those slurs. So they're not just economically lower class, right? But like they're othered in this other way. And we would normally, again, in 1959, we would think of them as like two separate kinds of people, right? But they're actually united in this poem because they both live really shitty conditions. You see what I'm saying? There's for sure something there, but we probably won't have time. But that's very good. I like that. Yes?
It kind of seems like it's talking about like this dreaming of heroes
Hmm?
that the narrator is.
That's the other way to read it.
Dreaming of the workers as the heroes.
That's the other way to read it. Because it's one sentence, and it's almost like this guy was really good at what he was doing, right? One way to read it is these folks are dreaming of heroes, which of course it seems like it'd be these folks. But the other way is, in the Shreve High football stadium, I think, that's the speaker, taking us to these other places. So he's in the football stadium thinking about all these people dreaming of heroes. The syntax would actually suggest he's dreaming of heroes. And then the question would be, well, who's that? I was like, well, he just told us. He's thinking of all these people. I think both can be true. I think both can be true. So again, the question would be, how or why? Why? What's heroic about any of these folks? All we've done so far is talk about how shitty their lives are. And then they go home and their wives are dying for love and they're fucking locked into the, like, doesn't sound heroic at all, the way that I'm used to thinking of it. Therefore. That therefore is very important. It's on a line all by itself. The way I describe it to students, it basically works like an equal symbol in a math problem, okay? All this plus all this equals that. That's what that therefore means, okay? So because all this happens, the speaker's saying this happens. So we're gonna have to dig into this language a little bit. And it's a little bit chewy, to be honest with you. Their sons grow suicidally beautiful. That is a hard phrase to parse, right? I think beautiful, that gets thrown around. We know that one. Suicide, we know what it means, but to say a thing is suicidally beautiful, it's beautiful because it's suicidal. Do you know what I'm saying? What the hell does that have to do with football, do you think? I mean, this might help you a little bit. The way he describes it, they gallop terribly against each other's bodies. The violence that he's underscoring for us. That helps us a little bit, I think. What's suicidal about the way these boys are probably playing football in 1959?
Most like you said, it was like murder ball back then.
Yeah.
No rules, no regulations, no safety.
I mean, there were rules, but,
Well,
they would also just fucking kill each other. Yeah. He's saying there's something beautiful about that, right? But of course, like any poem, I think it goes a little further, right? We're not just talking about football at the end, right? You guys touched on this a little bit. We're going to talk about it now. There are no recruiters in the stands. There's not even a scoreboard. That tells you the speaker's not really concerned with that stuff, okay? So say, just for the sake of argument, they win the game, whatever it is, okay? What happens after that to these boys? Something's going to happen. That's how life works.
They get praised by their dad.
Do what?
Like,
Praised?
Yeah.
Yeah, there'd probably be some of that. Yeah. What happens after that?
I mean, they go home to their mom that's sad
Yeah.
and their dad that's working on
Yeah, and they'll do that for a little while, and then what happens after football season? I mean, you got spring semester, I guess, right? And then what? What's after that?
They eventually go off to work
They're going to graduate eventually, and then what? They're going to go work.
at the place after that was working.
They're going right to that fucking mill. That's exactly where they're going. That's the only place they're going. There's no recruiters, there's no scholarships, there's no schoolwork. That's where they're going.
So they're happy their kids can be kids, even though it's a violent sport.
And but even in enacting this like beautiful, childish is hard because of the violence, but like this youthful freedom they can live with, right? It's ending even as they're doing it. It's autumn begins. Winter's coming. You know what I'm saying? So it's beautiful because of that. In the face of that, like knowing you're staring down the barrel of 40 years of a shit job and going out and playing football anyway and doing that is suicidally beautiful. Does that make sense? That's where the heroism comes in all of a sudden, is to do it anyway, I think. With that in mind, how might these guys be heroes to the speaker? Because that's the other way to read that. Because I think he's trying to tell them they're heroic. And I think we would often not see that, right? I think that's the point of the poem. He's trying to help us understand he thinks they're heroic. How so? There's no, metaphorical recruiter or scoreboard. They're not going to get that big promotion. They're going to work that same job until what? Until they fucking die. And that's it. But they do it anyway. Yeah. And it's weirdly, uncommonly, I think, heroic. At least that's what the speaker is after. He wants to celebrate the kinds of people that don't usually get celebrated, right? When you think of successful people, and I know we're all watching the other side of the aquarium weave, that's all it looks like to me, is just fish. Anyway, when you think of people that are like successful, that are worth celebrating, do we have anybody we could name right now? Or if I say like a hero, don't give me like a Superman, right? Give me like a real person. Can you think of anybody? I got one, maybe like LeBron James. You know what I'm saying? Like if you were 8, you're like, who's your hero? You can totally see a kid go, King James, right? You can see that. And look, that dude's put in the work for sure. But he was also LeBron James his entire fucking life, right? I'm not saying he hasn't had to work, but I am saying he's had it easier than a lot of people. Like, it's not quite, or if it's business, I don't know, like Elon Musk or some billionaire. Have they done something impressive? Yes. Did they start in a steel mill? No. So we overlook these people, much like the screen behind me is doing right now. And I think that's what the speaker wants us to see. And I know we're almost out of time. But it's not just a view into that. I want to underscore this real quick, and then we're going to leave, okay? It is a very, very, very quick look into a time and place. This is Martins Ferry, Ohio, 1959. You see what the dads are like, the moms are like, you see a little bit what the sons are like. And because of how that world is built, you learn what the sons are going to be and what their wives are going to be like, right? Because it's just a cycle. Any questions about any of that? Yes?
So, I guess why even mention Ohio? Why even mention that in America?
You got to put it. He's also from. He's also from there. He's from Martins Ferry.
I know, but it seems like this experience is distinctly American.
Well, it's distinctly Rust Belt for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, like you're gonna have similar stories, unfortunately, probably in the late 50s in the South, right? But there's not a lot of Rust Belt. It'd be like a farmer or something. But it's. I mean, I would wager it's probably personally important to him because it's people he grew up with, and weirdly, like he made it out because he became a poet. But the rest of the people he grew up with didn't, right? Like the world he's from, that is what it is. That's kind of all we do. I don't know. I'm answering your question very broadly, but that's kind of all we do when we write about, especially who we are or where we're from, right? We're kind of writing about those people. And to me, I just think it's because he understood that those people don't get written about. Does that answer your question? I'm not sure.
It just seems like the experience of factory workers just doing
It could
work
be.
in
It could be.
time is
Well,
very-
okay, what you're describing, you're just.
20th century.
I got you. You're describing the difference between a poem and a textbook.
Yeah.
A poem would have to be specific because to not be, it would be like a chapter in a textbook, which has value too. But I would argue, now that we've talked about the poem, and I know we're almost out of time, guys, I would argue the poem hits a little different, right? To borrow a phrase from the youngins, than a textbook would. All right, are we like super out of time? Is it 12:15? What time is it?
Oh, well.
You bastards. Give me a minute. Anyway, that's the poem, all right? So what we're going to do for next time, Old Men Playing Basketball. It's by a guy named B.H. Fairchild. He grew up in sort of Oklahoma and Texas in the 30s and 40s, I think. So, or the 50s? I'm bad with dates. Don't look. Anyway, he's old. He's old and white, but he's from the middle of America. And his poems are about a slightly different place, but it's really not that different from this poem. That's part of why I opened today with it, okay? So the world we're going to look into in the next couple poems we're going to read, very similar to this one. Those kinds of people, those kinds of jobs, those kinds of lives, where you don't maybe feel like there's a way out, like there's a promotion coming or anything you know what I'm saying? So I think it's a nice little preview for some of the concerns we're going to see get raised. Does that make sense? Right. And all I want you to do with Ole Miss playing basketball, I want you to read it more than once, please. See if you have any thoughts about it. If you notice anything at all, maybe write it down. I don't know, go crazy. But we're going to come in next time and talk about it. All right, I'll see you then. Thank you.